Well, morning all, and morning to the inside of the 718 Boxster T. Now, the first thing to say is, I hope you can hear me okay. Got the microphone on and the windows down. One of my pet hates motoring is people who buy sports cars or roadsters and convertibles and then drive around in near 20-degree temperatures with the roof up. Have the roof down, it's a gorgeous day. So why buy the car if you don't use it the way it's meant to be used? So the first thing to say about this little Boxster is I absolutely love it. I've not had a car like this actually in my driving career. I seem to have gone for big saloons and coupes more than little roadsters, even when I had the chance before, you know, getting married and having a child, etc. Oh, the road's closed. That's handy. Hey ho, let's turn around. I didn't really have the inkling for that kind of car at that point in my driving career. Standard stop start, we'll turn that off, and the sports exhaust on, and we'll explain why a little later on. So we'll head back down this little country lane. So as I was saying, didn't have cars like this. Oh, he's moved now. Hey ho, years ago. So I've come to this from the Panamera, obviously. And that's relevant because when I first got in this car from the Panamera, it was a lively little device, a very busy bee, all over the place, very animated. And at low speed, it can still feel like that. I've done nearly 200 miles in this car now, had it for a couple of days. But what I would say is you get used to the ride actually very, very quickly. It settles down quite appreciably, and at speed it actually really smooths out. And the ride actually is one of the two standout features for this car in my mind. Both of them are kind of chassis related. We'll come to the engine in a little while. The first standout feature has to be the damping. The way this thing just glides over the road, I believe the cliched phrase is breathes with the road, but it really does. It's gorgeous. The compression especially is just fantastic, and I don't think you'd ever get one of these to ground out unless you were really trying hard, you know, being a bit of an animal, so to speak. The second standout feature is the steering. Now, I've mentioned this in Porsches before, and in fact it's one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, dynamically anyway, that I bought my Panamera, because nothing in my experience steers like a Porsche. And this is a well-timed left-hander coming up here, so we'll just get on the brakes into third. Watch out for the MGB, liking that, sir, and then power out. And the steering, the way the front end tacks into bends in a Porsche is just phenomenal. And of course the Boxster, compared to the Panamera, you know, the two are completely different cars. The Panamera is 2.1 tons. This is a lot less than that. I confess I don't have the weights offhand. I'd guess at about 1,600 kilos maybe. I'll have to check that and maybe put it as an overlay on the video, but you can really feel the lack of weight in this, the lack of inertia. So yeah, the damping and the steering, the way the car tacks into bends, and the way the front of the car especially just settles on its damping is just, yeah, it's really, really delicious actually. The engine though kind of partly counts against it. Now, here's the thing, I'm not very experienced with Porsche flat sixes, and this road is appalling. I have driven them. I drove a 996 Carrera years and years ago, and it isn't the engine so much for that car actually that I remember, it's the brakes. The braking performance was phenomenal, but the engine did sound quite good. The engine in this, you need the sports exhaust. I think it might be standard on the T, but you do need the sports exhaust, because without that I should imagine it would sound even worse. It sounds a bit breathy, if that makes sense. If ever an engine was turbocharged, this is it. It really doesn't disguise its blown aspiration all that well. It's a device for getting the car down the road, and it's very effective at that. So it's the 2-litre flat 4, turbocharged of course, 300 horsepower, I think 295 brake, something like that, and about 280 foot-pounds. 7-speed PDK of course, which is nigh on instantaneous, that's third, and then second. It's a very good combination, but the engine, yeah, even to me, as somebody who's not really into that kind of Porsche flat six thing, I can see why people would complain about it just a little bit. As for the rest of the dynamics, as I'm very cautious around these little lanes here, good horn. The brakes are very, very good, actually. Again, there's not much to it in terms of weight, so you'd expect and hope for that, right? But the brakes are fantastic, very confidence inspiring. You wouldn't need carbon ceramics on this car, not even if you're going on track with it, although I'm not sure many people would, to be honest. In terms of handling, this isn't my car. Okay, it's on loan from Porsche Swindon. The weather is glorious, the roads are really, really dry, very sticky tarmac. I'm not pushing it, but even then it feels very sure-footed. It feels very confident and very reassuring in the bends. It's got that classic Porsche approach, kind of like a BMW in my opinion, in terms of not so much about weight distribution so much. That's not so important. It's where the weight is located that's relevant. And of course with a Porsche, the weight's in the middle, being mid-engine, at least for the Boxster anyway. I need to spend some time in the 911 at some point to understand how it works there. But yeah, dynamically, from a handling perspective, it's very reassuring. And like I said, the damping is fantastic, very sure-footed, and the brakes are just phenomenal. So as a device to enjoy driving, it's very, very enticing. It's just that engine, I can understand why the engine doesn't satisfy people. It's not quite got that 10th. In terms of practicality, life isn't too bad. There's quite a deep front boot, of course, or frunk if you absolutely must. There's a rear boot as well, although I'm not sure how hot stuff would get in there because of course the engine is between you and that boot area. The engine of course is hidden from view, which is a slight disappointment, at least to my mind. If you're spending £60,000 on a car, it'd be nice to see what motivates it. That's one of the reasons that EVs don't really appeal to me, because of the fact you can't see what you're paying for. Well, you know, in terms of the motive force anyway. But yeah, practicality wise, there's those two storage areas. There's door bins, half decent glove box, cup holders, heated seats of course in the winter, roof down, heater on, nice warm bottom. So it's practical enough. As I mentioned, I think kind of a little GT car really. It does cover quite a lot of bases, and to me it's no surprise that it's so very, very popular. If you discount exotica, like what Ferraris have become, the modern Ferrari, I'm certain is a phenomenal device, but it's a long way from the Ferraris that I had years ago, manual shift and a steering wheel unadorned with all manner of controls. This sports steering wheel just steers the car. Okay, it's got paddle shift as well, but it just steers the car and it's all the better for it. But yeah, if you consider cars which are even remotely attainable like a Boxster, I don't think there's very much on the road that handles better than something like this. So we're out on some faster roads now. This is the A40 just between Oxford and Gloucester. Got the windows up, doing 60 miles an hour, so I hope you can hear me. It's a bit breezy in here. My hat has threatened to fly off once or twice. This draft excluder between the rear seats is a fantastic bit of technology. As I mentioned a little earlier, once you're up to speed, the ride really settles down. I've not played too much with the sports chrono. Putting it in sport along here doesn't really make much difference, if I'm honest. It's running in sport now. I tend to just leave it in comfort mode and yeah, and go for the manual paddles if I want to shift gear manually. That's a very intelligent tractor just pulled out in front of me, and that's a very filthy exhaust. Let's just blast past this pie. There we go. That's the benefit of instantaneous torque, I guess, on that flat 4. If I had a flat 6, maybe I would have had to drop another couple of gears to get past that tractor. Anyway, yeah, it's the ride settles down, the noise levels with the windows up, it's just about okay for conversation. The Bose Hi-Fi with the windows up and the roof down is nigh on useless. I don't know, nice alpha. I don't know why you'd want to use that with the roof off. With the roof up, I confess I don't know. I've not driven it with the roof up at all. Again, why would I have a car like this and then drive around in today's weather with the roof up? To me, it's nonsensical. And I guess that's it, guys. Just a quick review, really. There's not much else to say. I think these cars kind of speak for themselves, really. I'm one of those guys, and I feel if you're in the market for a car like this, no amount of negativity from a reviewer is going to put you off it. If you're in the market for a Porsche Boxster, you're going to buy a Porsche Boxster. If you're in the market for a BMW Z4, you're going to buy a Z4. You're not really going to be too keen on what some random small-time YouTuber has to say about things. But to me, I can see the appeal if you are interested in buying one of these things. It's a gorgeous little device to drive. It's just, yeah, that engine just lacks a little something. Anyway, guys, we'll leave it there. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're not subscribing already. Stay in touch with the channel, and we'll see you all soon, guys. Cheers. I was about to do a piece to camera talking about... Forget it. You get those days doing YouTube where things either work or they don't. So today I've had amorous cows trying to get in the video. I've had people asking me what I'm doing, parking up in grass verges. I've had red lights that seem to stay red for hours on end, and now I've got a skip lorry to my left who's reversing continuously and ruining any chance of doing a little clip. Cheers, guys.